You won't believe what gospel powerhouse Leandria Johnson just dropped, and it's shaking the entire church world. At 42, she's breaking her silence and calling out one of the most powerful pastors in America, Creflo Dollar. What she's exposing isn't hearsay. It's what she claims to have witnessed firsthand: financial manipulation, spiritual abuse, a hidden system built on silence and fear. This isn't about drama, it's a wake-up call. If you've ever questioned what's really happening behind the pulpit, get ready, because Leandria is done playing nice. Leandria has always stood out in the gospel scene. While others polished their image and played by the rules, she wore her flaws openly. From addiction battles to calling out church hypocrisy, she never pretended to be perfect. But now she's gone even deeper. She's revealing secrets that many in the gospel industry would rather stay buried. For years, whispers surrounded Creflo Dollar, a pastor known for his flashy lifestyle, private jets, and prosperity preaching. While some defended his ministry, others quietly wondered, is this really about faith, or is it all about fortune? Leandria has finally answered that question, and according to her, the truth is darker than most dare to imagine. It all started during a live stream where Leandria opened up about the corruption she witnessed in the gospel industry. At first, her words sounded like a general critique. She talked about pastors manipulating churchgoers, using guilt and emotion to squeeze money from struggling people. But then she dropped the name, Creflo Dollar. According to Leandria, she personally witnessed church members being pressured to donate money they couldn't afford. People were told that if they sowed a financial seed, they'd receive miraculous blessings, that their debts would vanish, that God would reward their sacrifice. But Leandria says that the only one getting blessed was Creflo Dollar himself. She described how offerings were treated like spiritual currency: give more, receive more. And she claimed that in some churches, including Dollar's, there were systems to track how much each member gave. Those who donated the most were given private access to the pastor, special seats at events, and even tailored prophecies that seemed suspiciously aligned with their wallets. Meanwhile, those who couldn't give were often ignored, shamed, or told that their lack of faith was the reason their lives weren't improving. Leandria didn't just stop at exposing Dollar's tactics. She revealed that many insiders, artists, pastors, gospel executives, know exactly what's going on. But they stay quiet. Why? Because speaking out could destroy their careers. It could shut doors permanently. And now, she says, it's happening to her. Leandria explained how early in her career, she was welcomed into what she called the business of church. She attended private gatherings where high-profile leaders openly strategized on how to increase offerings. It wasn't ministry, it was marketing. They discussed emotional triggers, guilt-driven sermons, and techniques to make people give more. It was shocking, not because it was hidden, but because it was so normal to them. She claimed she was even approached by insiders who offered her a piece of the action. If she agreed to preach prosperity, encourage giving, and align herself with the right names, she could earn millions. She'd be elevated, booked for events, promoted everywhere. But she couldn't do it. Something inside her said no. And once she declined, the walls started closing in. The retaliation was swift and brutal. She noticed her songs getting pulled from gospel radio. Invitations to major events dried up. People who once called her a sister began distancing themselves. Then came the anonymous messages. Be careful what you say. Don't ruin your future. One message stood out. Some things are better left alone. Stay in your lane. But Leandria refused to back down. She says she had seen too much, felt too convicted, and couldn't stay silent any longer. And that's when she started telling even more. She revealed stories of gospel artists being used as pawns to legitimize corrupt ministries. Artists who were pressured to appear at events for pastors they didn't believe in. Some were even coached on what to say during interviews to make it seem like they supported the prosperity message. According to her, this wasn't about faith, it was about preserving the illusion. If trusted gospel stars stood next to questionable leaders, the public would keep believing. One moment, Leandria Johnson says, changed everything for her. She was attending a high-profile gospel event at a lavish venue. A night that, from the outside, looked like a powerful celebration of faith. The atmosphere was filled with worship music, bright lights, and praise. But what unfolded behind the scenes told a very different story. Leandria watched as a well-known pastor approached a struggling gospel artist, someone who had been battling to stay afloat in an industry that had largely forgotten them. What followed was an offer, a generous deal, renewed bookings, and financial support. But there was a condition. The artist had to publicly endorse this pastor's prosperity message, aligning themselves with a doctrine they clearly didn't believe in. She saw the hesitation in their eyes, the inner conflict written across their face. This wasn't about conviction, it was about survival. In the end, they agreed, not because they believed in the message, but because they were desperate for a second chance. That moment shattered something inside Leandria. She realized how deeply the manipulation ran, how easily faith was being traded for influence, how artists were being used as mouthpieces for power. She began calling it what it truly was, spiritual warfare. She later described how those who dared to challenge the system often paid a devastating price. Artists who spoke out were labeled as bitter or unstable. Their music vanished from airwaves, their names faded from lineups, and in their place, silence, forced and fearful. She even said that some churches used public shame to silence dissent. Leaders who asked too many questions were removed. Artists who refused to play along were excommunicated. And all of it, she claims, was backed by the same network of influence that has kept Creflo Dollar in power for decades. So why has it taken this long for someone like Leandria to speak up? She says it's fear. Fear of losing your platform. Fear of being alone. Fear of losing everything you've worked for. But she reached a breaking point. A moment where the pain of staying silent became greater than the fear of speaking out. That moment came when she saw that the very industry meant to uplift people was crushing them under a false gospel. A gospel that demanded money in exchange for miracles, that promised wealth in return for worship, and that used scripture not to heal, but to sell. Leandria Johnson makes one thing painfully clear. This was never just about Creflo Dollar. He may be the face of the controversy, but according to her, the real issue runs deeper. It's about a widespread, deeply embedded system that thrives on silence and punishes those who dare to speak the truth. Since stepping forward, Leandria has faced intense backlash. She's been labeled rebellious by members of the church community, painted as unstable by industry insiders, and abandoned by people who once called her sister in faith. Doors that were once wide open have quietly closed. Events, endorsements, airplay, all fading into silence. But through it all, she refuses to back down. Her voice has only grown stronger. Because for her, this isn't just about telling her story. It's about giving voice to the countless others who have been silenced, manipulated, or cast aside. She wants the world to see what really happens behind the polished sermons and smiling pulpits. She's calling out the money games, the backroom deals, the emotional manipulation masked as ministry. According to her, it's not about salvation anymore. It's about sales. And she believes that the true mission of the church has been lost in the pursuit of power and wealth. Leandria says her choice to speak up cost her everything, but it gave her something greater, freedom. She's no longer living in fear, she's living in truth. And now she's calling for a reckoning, for accountability, for a return to faith that uplifts instead of exploits. The gospel world is at a crossroads. Will it protect the illusion or face the uncomfortable truth? Because what Leandria Johnson has started isn't just a moment, it's a movement, and it's only just beginning. If this story shocked you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more eye-opening truths. Hit that bell so you never miss an update. This is just the beginning. The truth deserves to be heard. Stay tuned. Thanks for watching.